How many upsets will we see in week 1? Who should you start in fantasy football this weekend? Find all that out on this week's episode of NFL Weekly Preview. Hi guys, I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's Week 1 preview. This is the first of the season, so I want to explain what you're going to see in this video. You're going to have the odds for each game, I'm going to have some questions and some storylines to follow for each section, and I'm going to have some fantasy starters for each game as well. At the end of each game, I'm going to give my own predictions and be following them every. So if you want to follow along with me, subscribe to the channel. But I don't want to keep you guys for much longer. Let's get started with the Detroit Lions playing in Kansas City against the Chiefs. By the time this video is published, this is actually being recorded on Thursday before Thursday Night Football. Obviously, this game is going to be done. I just want to put out there that my score prediction is 27-20 Kansas City. The first game that I actually do want to discuss is the San Francisco 49ers playing in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. And this game is interesting because I think it's going to be closer than the casual fan may think. Led by Brock Purdy, the San Francisco 49ers are favored to win this game by 2.5 points with an over-under set at 41.5. This game is going to showcase two second-year quarterbacks, probably the two quarterbacks that actually showed off the most in year 1. So this game is going to go under in my opinion, since there is a bit of an experience seen here. There has been a lot of talk lately on if the 49ers can retain what they did in 2023, and in my opinion, it's just going to come down to what the offensive coaching can do. So my question is if Brock Purdy can return to the same level of play that he played at last season. Brock Purdy was not expected to play last season, let alone play at the level that he did. With the deteriorating offensive line and a heavy pressure on his second-year performance, we will see what he actually can do. As for Pittsburgh, I'm going to avoid the typical Kenny Pickett, can he play talk, and discuss if this pass rush can be productive. As I said before, this offensive line is deteriorating, and it's highlighted by veteran Trent Williams, who is starting to get pretty old. The problem here is that there are no other true starting caliber players on this offensive line, so with an edge rusher duo of TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, and on the inside you got Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton, this pass rush should do pretty good against San Fran. I do think this game is going to be pretty close, but I am going to go with the odds and take San Francisco by a score of 20-17, as San Fran covers the spread but goes under the point total. Moving on to Carolina, going out to Atlanta to face the Falcons. Atlanta is favored by 3.5 points with an over-under of 39.5, but if you watch the channel, you'll know that I don't like Atlanta going into 2023, and I actually think that Carolina is going to win the NFC South. This division is an interesting one to watch this season, and while none of the teams may be good, it's going to be fun to see who actually comes out. My question surrounding this Carolina team is if their defense can't perform under Ejiro Evero. The defense did show pretty good flashes under Steve Wilkes last season, including allowing 23 to the Lions, 13 to the Ravens, and 10 to the Saints. Now under Evero, the defensive coaching does improve, so we're going to see if this defense can continue to perform. Even if Brian Burns doesn't play, you got Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson, Frankie Louvu, JC Horn, Jeremy Chin, a lot of these guys who can contribute in their own way. With Atlanta, I do like the young playmakers on the roster, and I'm wondering if they're going to make a week 1 impact against Carolina. Desmond Ridder can do pretty well on the ground, and in the backfield, they also have Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. And then in the air, they have Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who are going into their second and third year respectively. Overall, I do think this game is going to be a good one for week 1, but I don't think Atlanta can pull it off. Carolina gets the money line and goes over the point total. Moving on to a boring matchup odds-wise, we have the Houston Texans playing the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore is favored by 10 points, and the Houston money line is plus 390, making this game the biggest gap odds-wise. I will keep this game short, as I'm sure you can predict the outcome, but I do want to dive into the CJ Stroud situation. I do believe Houston is underrated. I do believe they have a genuine shot at being a 500 team. I just have a lot of questions regarding this offensive line. They were pretty damn horrid last season, but they added Shaq Mason to the roster, which is a massive deal. CJ Stroud relies on good pass protection, as wherever it may be, he does need a clean pocket to have good accuracy, decision making, arm talent, just any quarterback trait. And it just almost feels like all of his quarterback traits just fall so far when he's under pressure. As for Baltimore, there isn't particularly a question you can ask about week 1. I'm just interested to see how Lamar Jackson will perform in Todd Monken's scheme. From what I've observed, Lamar Jackson may have a bigger say than he has ever had in the offense, but we can't confirm that until we watch this week 1 game. It's a pretty obvious decision for me here. I'm taking Baltimore 30-14 as they cover their own spread and go over the point total. Moving on to the most interesting matchup this week, I have Cincinnati versus Cleveland. Cincinnati is favored to win by 2.5 points despite Cleveland being at home, but Cleveland has a pretty good shot here. The AFC North is going to be a very good and fun division to watch, and while I don't think it's going to be good as the AFC East, the AFC North is still going to be very competitive. I don't think the question surrounding this matchup is how high scoring it's going to be or how electric it's going to be. It's going to rely on when Cleveland has the football. Cincinnati needs to find a way to pressure Deshaun Watson. Cleveland has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and Cincinnati has a fairly solid developmental edge group. Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, and Miles Murphy is a very nice group off the edge. DJ Reader is a very solid run guy on the inside. He just isn't a plus pass rusher. Being that, this Cincy team is going to have to pressure that something to prove quarterback. On the other end, Cleveland is going to have to be less predictable, which is the reason why I'm not a big fan of Kevin Stefanski as a head coach. I just really hope that he doesn't ruin Deshaun Watson's potential, as they have been a run-first offense the last few years. If teams can predict this team, especially an under-average defense like Cincinnati's, Cleveland is going to be in trouble for 2023. And Stefanski may be out as head coach. For this game, I do believe the point spread is perfect. I have Cincinnati beating Cleveland 27-24 and the game going over the point total. Another game with a pretty big gap is Tampa Bay going out to Minnesota to visit the Vikings. Minnesota is favored by 5.5 points and the over-under is 45.5. Minnesota's expectations are pretty low going into 2023 given that last season they finished 13-4 with a negative point differential. In fact, they haven't been at a positive point differential since 2019. As for Tampa, they're going into the season hungover from Tom Brady, and Tom Brady wasn't even that good in his last season. Speaking of the Buccaneers, I do believe their offense is going to heavily struggle, so they're going to have to rely on their defense. With names like Shaq Barrett, Antoine Winfield, Vita Vea, Levante David, this defense is undoubtedly very talented. But is it talented enough to have them win more than 7 games? With Minnesota, I have to ask if Kirk Cousins is going to get all of the receivers involved against Tampa Bay. Jay Jettas will likely be matching up against Jamel Dean, which is a mismatch, like every matchup there is, but it's less of a mismatch than you may think. But KJ Osborne is going to be covered by Carlton Davis, TJ Hawkinson by Levante David, but Jordan Addison in the slot against D. Delaney is going to be one to watch. That's why Jordan Addison is my fantasy start, as I'm not a fan of D. Delaney. But without a doubt in my mind, I do believe Minnesota wins this game. Give me Minnesota by a score of 28-12, which obviously covers the spread but goes under the point total. The Joshua Dobbs-led Arizona Cardinals step in to play the Washington Commanders. Washington is favored by 7 points, and the over-under is so low at 38.5. This is probably the most boring matchup of the week, so I do apologize if this section gets boring along with it. This is a matchup between my number 32 team versus my number 28 team, both having a pretty bad side of the ball. Arizona's bad side is the defense, but without Kyler Murray, the offense is pretty bad as well. Dobbs' options aren't terrible though. I mean, they're better than what he had with Tennessee last season. Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, and Zach Ertz are all viable receiving options for Dobbs if he needs it. Now the question is, can Joshua Dobbs be able to deliver it consistently to them? With Washington, the storyline also relates to their quarterback, but less if he can perform and more if he can start out hot. Definitely, Sam Howell is an uncertain quarterback, but we need to look at this in the grand scheme and see how bad Arizona actually is. He's very young, and he's going to have a massive opportunity to start off hot against a very bad Arizona secondary. Even with Howell having that chance, he's not going to save this game from being boring. I do think this game is still going to be pretty low scoring. Washington's going to cover the spread by winning 20-10, and the point total is going to go under. Another boring matchup here being Tennessee playing at New Orleans. New Orleans is favored by 3 points, and the over-under is 41.5. There's just not a lot of electricity on either of these teams. The Tennessee Titans have a very low amount of stars, but a good amount of superstars, and the Saints have a lot of stars, but no true superstars outside of Ryan Ramczyk. New Orleans is the projected winner here, so why don't we discuss them first, and if their rushing game is going to look different under Derek Carr. Alvin Kamara is going to miss the first 3 games of the season, and improving at quarterback is also going to help you guys switch more to an air raid offense. Yet, Jamal Williams is new. I just can't trust him as a workhorse back yet. With Derek Carr being a good deep passer, and Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson even being a reliable receiving option in the deep game, Derek Carr could lead the entire league in pass attempts this season. I'm going to continue the trend here of talking about if a player can start hot. This time it's with veteran Ryan Tannehill. With a declining Tannehill, his job is very much in trouble. He's got 2 guys that are okay backups, and he's kind of starting to become an okay starter. He's going to have to start off hot against New Orleans this season, and with a guy like Treylon Burks as your wide receiver too, he's going to be your best friend this week. My prediction for this game is New Orleans hitting the spread and going over the point total by a score of 27-17. We're back to the divisional matchups for this game, but this one's bound to be boring as we have Jacksonville visiting Indianapolis. Jacksonville was a very fun team in 2022, and I expect them to expand on that for 2023. As for Indy, they actually disappointed in 2022, and I also expect that to continue in 2023. You can predict what I think will happen just off of that, but let's get into the questions as I have to ask how many skill players will get involved in Jacksonville's offense. Even excluding the fact that this game could be a blowout, you still have Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, and Travis Etienne from last season. But mix in Calvin Ridley and add on Tank Bigsby, new free agency pickup Ernest Johnson, add on rookie Parker Washington. There are a lot of skill players and mouths to feed in this offense. As for Indy, defensive coordinator Gus Bradley is going to really have to improve this defense. I have them ranked 29th in defensive talent, and that's around where they were last season in terms of points, but they didn't have Shaq Leonard. Mix in DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kwity Paye, even Kenny Moore, rookie Juju Brents. This defense has potential. I don't think it will perform that well this season, but Gus Bradley has led some elite defenses in the past. I'm going for a blowout for the away team. Give me Jacksonville 30-14 when covering the spread and just going under on the point total. Moving on to a high potential game with another division rival matchup. We have Los Angeles Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks here, where Seattle's favored by 5.5 points and the over-under sits at 45.5. I do like Seattle going into 2023, and I even have Geno Smith as a mid-ranked quarterback. With the Rams, I originally had them ranked dead last in the entire NFL with such a bad defense, but since then, they've moved up to 31st with Arizona bumping down to 32. Even with how bad this Rams defense is, they have a genuine shot at winning this game. Beginning with the Rams storyline, I'm just wondering if the offense can keep the defense off of the field. Losing Cooper Kupp for this game is so bad, but they still have talent on offense. Matt Stafford, Cam Akers, my fantasy start Tyler Higbee, Rob Havenstein. They have talent. The offensive line just isn't that great, and without Cooper Kupp, Stafford doesn't have too big of a reliable target. The Rams defense is pretty damn bad. Yeah, Aaron Donald's there, but their next best guy is John Johnson and Jordan Fuller. Seattle's offense is going to murder this Rams defense, but I still have to ask if Geno Smith can replicate what he did in 2022. Geno was surprisingly good, having good decision making, being fairly accurate, and having the arm talent that we kind of knew already, but the accuracy was not there. I would be surprised if he did replicate the talent, but playing slightly worse isn't far out of the picture. With Cooper Kupp in or out, I do want to give out to you guys that I still think Seattle covers the spread anyways. This time it's just by a score of 34-21. Without Kupp, the point total still goes well over. Another matchup that I believe has high potential is the Philadelphia Eagles playing the New England Patriots. Philly is favored by 4 points, and the over-under sits at 45. Philly is coming off a Super Bowl run with the elevation of Jalen Hurts. New England is still hungover from their Super Bowl runs with Tom Brady, and apparently Bill Belichick's on the hot seat, which makes no sense. But naturally, the over-under is going to be low given two good defenses, but do I think it's going to go under? Speaking of hangovers, Philadelphia is looking to not have a Super Bowl hangover after losing to the Chiefs last season. They lost a good chunk of talent on defense with TJ Edwards, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Javon Hargrave, Marcus Epps as well. I don't think the Super Bowl hangover is going to happen, but it is going to be one to monitor this season. Now, I have to ask if this New England defense is the real deal. They're ranked 6th in defensive talent with Matt Judon, Josh Uche, Dietrich Wise, Jawan Bentley, Jonathan Jones. There is a lot of development to be had here on this defense, so we'll see how they play this year. I do think this game ends up high scoring. Philly's offense is very strong, and New England can run off garbage time anyways. Give me a score of 34-20 Philly covering the spread and going over the point total. Moving on to yet another divisional matchup, this time between the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders. The spread sits at 4 points towards Denver, and the over-under is 44. Denver has high expectations with a new head coach, and they're hoping they can turn around their entire team's success. With Vegas, they downgraded a QB after an already disappointing season. I truly don't know how bad this jump from quarterback to quarterback is going to be. Derek Carr is an overhated quarterback with some great arm talent, and Jimmy G doesn't really have that arm talent. He's not too flashy, and he often gets hurt. I do like Josh Jacobs going into this season, but if he can't perform like he did last year, this entire Raiders team is in trouble. As for Denver, it is interesting to see how good Sean Payton is going to coach this team. I just don't know how significant the turnaround is going to be. He did coach for New Orleans for 15 seasons, so I do think we will see his impact about right away. I am expecting to see a good amount of groundwork with Javonte Williams and Russell Wilson being able to finally scramble out of the pocket. I don't even think the spread hits anywhere. I do think Denver wins by 4 points as they're favored by 4 points. Final score of 21-17, and the game going under on the point total. How about another divisional game? We have possibly the biggest rivalry in the NFL here with the Green Bay Packers visiting the Chicago Bears. The Bears are favored by 1 point. Chicago is coming into 2023 with of hype around Justin Fields, but also the team itself. Facing the Packers week 1 will either prove everyone to be right or give everyone, especially Adam Rank, a reality check. Green Bay's run defense is going to be the biggest factor here to stop Chicago, as not only is Justin Fields the best rushing quarterback in the NFL, but Khalil Herbert is also on the brink of breaking out. The defensive line is a solid group of run defenders, but with rookies in Lucas Van Ness, Carl Brooks, and Colby Wooden, there's a lot of underdevelopment here. At the next level, Devondre Campbell is more of a coverage threat, and Quay Walker did disappoint in his 2022 season. The Bears' rushing attack will be brutal, that's for sure. But the question is if their passing attack can do the same. Is Justin Fields actually the future of the franchise? Against a team like Green Bay, DJ Moore is going to be a non-factor, and the rest of the targets are the same targets he had last year. The lack of targets present from last season will be present in this week 1 matchup, so Justin Fields needs to have a good start. Overall, this division matchup could be the most balanced that we've seen it in years. Give me Chicago winning 17-14, covering the spread and going under the point total. Moving on to a very intriguing matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers. LA is favored by 3 points, and the over-under is 50.5. A matchup for the ages between two teams whose defenses did not perform well in 2022. I do believe both of them will make big leaps for 2023 though. Miami's rushing game is looking very, very interesting for 2023. Led by Raheem Mostert, who I believe is very underrated, they also have Jeff Wilson and Devon Achane also in the backfield. There are a lot of mouths in this running back room to feed, and especially with the LA Chargers, who I believe have a pretty lackluster run defense, we'll see if all of them will feed. We may see even the wide receivers get involved in the run game, Tyreek Hill and Braxton Berrios specifically. Because of this matchup and how lackluster the LA run defense is, I don't think this game is a good interpretation of how this run game will look all year. As for LA, they have a very talented Miami defense coming up. I don't even know what part of the defense they will attack. The linebackers and the safeties are the worst positional groups here, but the cornerbacks are really good in pass coverage. The defensive line is also good at run defense. I don't see the linebackers being great there. I do see them as better in coverage. I don't know who's going to be involved, but I do believe that Keenan Allen is a good start for this week. A very interesting matchup though. I do believe Miami comes out on top with the stronger defense. Give me Miami 27-20, obviously covering the spread, but going under on the point total. Two more divisional matchups to round out the week here, as we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Giants, another pretty big rivalry. The spread is Dallas minus 3.5, and the over-under sits at 45.5. The spread is Dallas minus 3.5, and the over-under is 45.5. This matchup has been a bit lopsided the last few seasons, but Brian Daboll is bringing this New York Giants team on the come up. Speaking of Brian Daboll, I wonder if he will expand the playbook for 2023. He got a lot of people involved last season, primarily due to injuries, but if everyone stays healthy, he's got a lot of mouths to feed, and he has to find a way to make this playbook more creative. Daboll needs to push the boundaries of a playbook if he wants to have this New York Giants team go further in the playoffs. As for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott has a big opportunity to just rack up yardage. He's already pretty good at it, and the Giants were pretty high in pass yards allowed last year. They also don't have any plus safeties in coverage, so don't be surprised if Dak Prescott throws for 300 to 400 yards. This matchup is intriguing, and I do have New York beating Dallas 27-24. Covering the spread and going over the point total. Finally, Monday Night Football is going to be one of the best matchups all season. The Bills and Jets match up, with the Bills being favored by 2.5 points and the over-under being 46.5. The Jets are looking very good for 2023, but man, the Bills have been good for the past few years. With Buffalo, they want to work well on both sides of the ball. With the Jets improving in a lot of different places on both offense and defense, it's going to be difficult. Buffalo's offense ranked 6th, and their defense actually ranks 1st, ensuring that they are in fact pretty competitive here. They also have the advantage over New York, as their offense is ranked 12th and their defense is ranked 9th. Yet, we don't know how good this New York Jets offense can be. We don't know if it's going to be really good or really bad. Aaron Rodgers is obviously a great quarterback, but we don't know how they will look. My question here is about the offensive line. The offensive line's not great at all. If they can block the veteran in the pocket, they are going to be a lot better than the 12th ranked offense. As an overall game, this game is going to be a phenomenal wrap up to week 1. Give me the Buffalo Bills 28-24, covering the point spread and going over on the point total. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Obviously, I'm doing a weekly preview every week, and midweek I have winners and losers of the week. So if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and thank you guys so much for choosing this channel as your source of sports coverage. I'll see you guys in the next video.